Hey folks, the next speaker I want to introduce is Mr. Todd Gross. He's a well-known meteorologist on American TV, and lately he's been very involved in the internet marketing scene, mainly with videos and voiceovers and stuff like that. And he just tells us a little bit about how to use your voice in video and in marketing. Enjoy.
Improve especially your voiceovers and how you can even improve your voice. Now, some of you from the various products that we've sold, Kimberly in the back knows some of these tricks, but overall you're going to find a lot of information here, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to get the presentation, because we're really going to be jam-packed. We're going to have a fun hour or a little bit less, and I'm going to leave plenty of time open for questions and answers as well. So we're actually going to go over improvement of your videos and especially your audios and that kind of thing, rather than my typical speech would be talking about how I've used this to increase my marketing and exactly how I did that. I've given that speech for several years now, and Simon suggested that I actually deviate a little bit and talk about improving your own work. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm the perfect example of how somebody can come from a really bad beginning in terms of voice and end up successful. Because I sounded like this guy, Tony Soprano. I was from Queens, New York, which is the home of Archie Bunker. And I don't know if you remember how Archie Bunker sounded, but he got that Queens accent pretty down pat. Hey, forget about it, New York City accent. I had to get rid of that thing. And I knew when I was really, really young that I wanted to do weather on TV. I knew that when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. I was really little, and the thing that got me into it was something strange. And don't go looking up the date of this. This is going to confuse you because I look younger than I am. But it was back in 1960, 61, that range. There was a huge snowstorm, and I was really tiny, and I was impressed that I could fall in the snow and I would actually not be able to find my way out. I thought that was the coolest thing. Then we had Hurricane Donna, and it canceled my first day of school, and I was just going into the first grade. I said, wait a minute, a hurricane weather can affect whether I go to school or not? That's the coolest thing in the world. So I love that concept, that the weather was so powerful, and I wanted to be the person to tell people about the weather. So that's how I started getting towards broadcasting, because I wanted to be the guy to tell about that. So, this is little Todd. Well, no, it's not, but this is what I would do when I was young. I would actually sit and practice reading. Now, I didn't know when I was very little that I had that New York accent to get rid of, but I knew that my pronunciation wasn't very good. And it was really when I was a teenager that I was doing that I would read constantly and read out loud. That's the first tip of the day. We didn't even get to the tips. And that is to read out loud. Now, many of you here are partners of mine, and you send me scripts to do voiceovers for. And you all make the same exact error. You don't read the scripts out loud. You send me what is pretty hard to read because you don't read out loud. Reading out loud is your #1 tip to writing a good script and practicing out loud. So that's what I did when I was a teenager to start improving, but I still had that pesky New York accent to get rid of, and that wasn't easy. But I eventually was able to get on television because I got in at a very opportune time. I wasn't good as a broadcaster yet, by any means, but I was a meteorologist. I got the training because I was interested in weather, right? So I got that training, and I thought that was really cool that I can get in. So I was able to get in TV because it was a time where there were weather people on the air, but there weren't meteorologists who were trained in college yet. They were just starting to come up through the ranks. So even though I was not very good, I was able to get onto television. Then I wouldn't have been able to do that now with the skill set that I had. So I'm just going through a little bit of background here so that you understand where I came from and how I ended up in internet marketing. So I went from there working at, I first worked in Rochester, New York, and Albany, and I moved to Boston. This is early Boston. And then from there, a few things happened. And it sort of eventually led me into internet marketing. So on the upper right, there I am in the Weather Center at Channel 7 when I became chief meteorologist there. On the upper left in 2000, right around 2000, The Perfect Storm, the movie came out. That guy that you see on the upper left, Christopher McDonald, he played me in the movie The Perfect Storm. They got hold of the fact that I was on the air in the early 90s and that I had actually forecast that storm, along with other people as well. But I wrote a little story about it on the internet, and I showed them that story, and they ended up casting my character in the movie The Perfect Storm, and I was played by Christopher McDonald, who actually is the guy that says, "Oh, that's the perfect storm." But I didn't actually call it that, and I wish I had, because that would have been great. But that's what happened in 2000 to me, and then I actually lost my job in Boston in 2005, the very end of 2005. I ended up going to Utah after some detours, and I started getting into being out west, and the weather out west was interesting me. But at the same time, I needed extra money. So that's how we're getting towards my internet marketing career. Right around then, there I am out west with my cowboy hat looking like Chris Jenkins. And then on the right-hand side, you can see this progression where I started doing similar videos for internet marketing at a time where there really was nobody doing videos. There was a little bit here and there. We have Mike Stewart and others doing some video work in internet marketing, but this is 2006 now, and I knew, before I knew about KLT, Know, Like, and Trust, I knew the concept. I knew it from TV, and I had been working on it all those years, trying to relate to the viewer on the other side of the camera. So what I did was, I started with Derek Van Dyke, who I was just bumped into. The reason I bumped into him online, and I got into internet marketing, was I wanted to do a thing where I would do my weather forecasts online, and then I wanted to figure out how to monetize it. So all you guys, you internet marketers, taught me really quickly how to monetize, right? How am I going to monetize putting the weather online? Well, internet marketing. So I said, but you guys aren't using videos. So I went to Derek Van Dyke, who had Affiliate Cash Secrets, and I said, you know, I could do a video for you. In fact, I've already done one. Look at my Affiliate Cash Secrets video. So I had made a video already, and there's a little marketing tip, is of course to do something for free for somebody that you can do to impress them. So he then grabbed me and said, all right, let's do something together. So we created something that now is very familiar to you, video squeeze pages, and we sold them and we called it Squeeze Videos. That was our original concept, and then a year later we did pre-sale videos. Squeeze Videos was very successful at the time and built a list right away, which I started marketing to. And ever since then, I've been on a fairly steady course, as EBR mentioned earlier. And that course has been, of course, talking mostly about video marketing. So it took years in terms of slow and steady wins the race and not being terribly distracted to become JB Zoo's top affiliate last year and the year before. This year I'm battling it out with Sam Backer as usual. Sam's sneaky. He comes to me, he says, you know, what's your secret? You gotta tell me your secret. So I told him all my secrets, and then he becomes the top JB Zoo affiliate. He's still a great friend, and of course we all do that with each other. So anyway, that's how that happened, was basically working with that list and continuing to work with you guys as marketers to do products, you know, videos for your products and to promote your products. And this has just been a slow and steady wins the race kind of thing in terms of my ascending up through the affiliate ranks. Putting out products mostly related to video, promoting products mostly related to video. Not all, because the list kind of needs a break now and then and likes cutting edge stuff in general. And traffic is an example of something that's related to video that isn't exactly video, but most of the time it always comes back to that. It comes back to video oriented products. And there I am as a spokesman. So this has been a very interesting kind of development in that I have kind of a robust business going on being a spokesman for your products, where folks can hire me as the spokesman, but it becomes sometimes a conflict of interest with my own products, etc. So it gets a little complicated. But one thing that many folks have figured out is they could always hire me to do voiceover work when I don't mention my name, because then no one's really sure that it's me, and I'm not really endorsing the product. So I've been doing a lot of those voiceovers lately. In the last year, I've done over 100, I'd say. And I'm repeatedly hired by the same people like Ankur Shukla and Radu Hahenu. It has been going very, very well for me. But let's talk about you now and how you could work on your voice now that you know my history. So I'm going to go over some video and voiceover tips. And first of all, I want to show you just in general, when you're doing video stuff like this, there's 3 ways to read. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about my presentation today is it's the most similar to when I was on TV. I'm working off visuals like here. And when you're in front of a camera, you could do the same thing. You could work off visual cues rather than necessarily having to read off a teleprompter. So keep that in mind. That's one thing you could do. The second is to work off an outline, like Donald Trump. He, generally speaking, does not like to go scripted. He brings a little cheat sheet, and this could go when you're on stage or when you're on video as well, because you can make it look very natural, and you could work off an outline just to remind you of the points. Both of those, the first and the second points right there, work off visuals and work off an outline, is something that you can do without needing a script at all. And, you know, you may have to shoot it a couple of times to get it right, etc. But if you're just doing a free flow consciousness, it's going to work out really well. So that's why I'm not really a good speaker on stage in general. I get nervous, and then there's something to sell at the end, I'm even more nervous. It's not like I'm in front of the camera when I'm less nervous, but today I like it more because I'm working straight off the visuals, and you will too if you do decide to go and do videos for yourself. The third one is key. You can't really read a script without a teleprompter if you are going to have a script. And teleprompters have become very, very inexpensive. So what teleprompters are, if you don't know, is you actually could put like an iPad right on the bottom there, and then you could read right into the camera, and you read along as it scrolls through so that you can follow your script. And you know, that's helped me do a lot more videos lately because I'm able to just read through, and I'm getting better and better on the teleprompter. When I was doing weather on television, I was one of the few people that didn't use teleprompter because I worked off the visuals. So all the anchor people would always say, how can you do the weather? How do you keep talking? You don't have anything to read. And I would say to them, how could you read off the teleprompter? All those words flying by. So I'm getting better at it now, and with practice you can get better at it too if you want to use a teleprompter. However, there is a little bit of a problem here, which I'll get to in a minute about video, and that is it's really hard to do and takes a lot of practice, and that will move us on to the next subject. But when you are doing video, there are some keys to remember, and that is, number one, you need to be prepared. Now, President Obama here in the United States is remarkable as a speaker, both how good he is and how bad he is at the same time. And when I say that, I mean it depends on the day. If he's prepared, he doesn't stop and go, When he's not prepared, he does. He has a problem where he can't get to his next thought in time, and he ums a lot and he doesn't move along. But when he is prepared, what he does is a remarkable speech, some of the best ever in US politics. The other thing, which is really important, is to try to smile as you speak. Like I'm trying to smile right now, because you seem more friendly. You don't seem like you have a scowl on your face. And that's going to come up in our next subject as well, which is audio. The third is men, pay attention to this, you really do need makeup. In fact, I forgot mine today, and I said, oh my goodness, I forgot my makeup. And it's something that all the politicians since 1960 learned real quick, and it's something that you should learn real quick. It's not just for women. It reduces the reflection. The reason I talk about 1960 is because Nixon possibly lost the election to Kennedy in 1960 because of his performance in a visual sense, not in terms of an oratory performance, but in terms of visually during the debate with John F. Kennedy. He didn't have makeup on, Kennedy did. Kennedy faked him out. I don't know if you know this story, but Kennedy said, no, I don't want any makeup in front of Nixon. But then Kennedy went in the back room and put on makeup. Nixon didn't. Nixon was sweaty. He looked like a criminal if you watch the tapes of the debate. He just didn't look good. Makeup is important to reduce the shininess. And there's a great makeup that's out now, produced by MAC, M-A-C, pressed powder makeup. You have to match it to your coloring. And it doesn't just hide blemishes and that sort of thing, but it reduces the reflection on your skin. So if you really are serious about video, keep in mind you should be using some sort of makeup. Dressing neatly, it depends on what you're aiming for. I mean, if you're a really cool young dude and you want to look off the cuff, I can't really see Luke as an example, Luke McGuire, dressing up too neatly. But I mean, it's just, it depends on who you're after. But generally speaking, you shouldn't come on looking sloppy, and that's just common sense. Now, the most important thing, though, is when you're speaking to use your hands. And when you use your hands, there's a way to do it. And again, I keep going back to Kennedy because he was really good at it. He would go like this with his fist, and then Bill Clinton took it a step further and went like this with his fist, bum, 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 for emphasis when he spoke. I did not have sex with that woman. Right? Remember, his thumb is up? I did not have sex with her. Emphasis. Very good, Bill. We believed you for a few moments there. I loved his definition of sex in that. It really flies well here in Vegas. Go home and tell my wife, I did not have sex in Vegas. Video and voiceover tips. Now, here's the thing. After I just told you how to do good videos, video is really hard to do anyway. So audio, not video, should be where you start. So if you are playing around with it, and even partners of mine who have been doing videos and audios already, you probably know that the videos are really tough nut to crack. I'm still a little uncomfortable in front of the camera, and I'm getting pretty old. I mean, there's not too many years left that I have to get comfortable. So I know it's a hard thing to do, to get comfortable in front of the camera, and it's way less to worry about when you're doing audio. All right. So the thing about doing audio is that you could then include visuals. All right, include visuals to cover the audio. And therefore, you're still making a video. And you could even do an introduction where you comb your hair, you put on something nice, you do a nice little intro, and that intro could be very short. It could be 20 seconds or 15 seconds, and then break into the rest of the video. When television, we did that all the time. We do stories as reporters, and we're only on camera at the beginning when we introduce the story, in the middle where we do a stand-up, they call it, right in the middle where we just do a few words, and then at the end where we're closing. And sometimes we're not even on at the end. Sometimes we're not even on at the beginning. We're only on in that middle part for just a few seconds. So again, you get to see the person involved. So you know there's a person involved in that video, but most of it is audio. It's voiceover work. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about here today, as some place to really start. If you're really interested in making videos or having somebody make videos for you and you want to train them, let's back off just a little bit and talk about audio work. See, audio gets laid down first in televisions, and then you put the visuals on top. So it's the prime thing that you're doing, okay? So it's important in that regards. And you could cover it up in a variety of different ways. Think about it. You could do a screen capture, meaning you could capture what's going on your screen, and you could talk over that as you're doing it, or you could talk over that and narrate it after the fact, after you've done it. You could also show pictures. You could write, like PowerPoint. It's really very, very easy to cover up. And the other thing about audio is it's easier to edit. So on video, we have what's called a jump cut. Anyone here remember the movie Broadcast News? It was with Holly Hunter. It was a great movie that I want you all to watch when you get a chance, because it really takes you back to the importance of how news has changed and become more entertainment. But there's a scene in it that's really key where she figured out that the main anchor was lying because he didn't have an extra cameraman and they took 2 shots. And this signaled to her that he was not a really tender person who just started crying all of a sudden when this woman was telling him a story about her plight. But he had to sit there and he had to fake the tear, and then he took another shot of himself. And the reason he did that was because there was a jump cut. It's a situation where you're talking on camera, and then something happens, you have to start again. You can't start again easily without seeing a jump cut. You have to either cover that with video, or you have to take a different angle shot. And that's what it dealt with in that movie, in that particular scene. But in audio, you don't have to worry about taking another shot or covering it up. When you're doing the audio, it's very easy to edit. You just take out a piece and then put in another piece right next to it. And in almost all situations, it flows. All right, so that's another reason why I'm suggesting you start with doing videos that are really based on your audio work, your voiceover work. Now, if you're doing audio, then you're going to need some kind of training, some kind of tips. How do you get better in audio? And that's difficult because obviously there's so many different little things here and there. I'm going to cover just a few of them. Some of you already know these and some don't. This is one of my favorites, is that you can actually lower the pitch of your voice. If you have a high voice, it's actually possible to lower it. It's a little easier for men because we have a more pronounced Adam's apple. But if you put your hand right here and go ah like that, and then want to lower your voice, try to make your Adam's apple fall. Oh, go lower. Oh, and you'll feel your Adam's apple drop. If you go higher, your Adam's apple will rise. This will help you bring your voice to a lower, more resonant sound. You don't always have to go for volume. Like one of my problems is I go for volume, but really what you're looking for is lower and resonance. Resonance is actual power, and I'll prove that to you with an incident that happens to me day in and day out. I'll talk about that, and that is I have practiced for years controlling people in certain environments by lowering my voice and making it resonant. And I do that whenever little Todd, standing at 5'5.5", tries to get the attention of a waiter or somebody at Walmart or Home Depot, and they just won't turn around for little Todd. Excuse me, they don't turn around. Excuse me, they don't turn around. Excuse me. They all turn around. They could be 2 aisles away. I didn't even have to raise my voice that high. If I get it just right, excuse me, it just captures their attention. And it's the same sort of thing when you're doing videos. If you do have a lower, more resonant voice, you're going to have more power over people. It's just the way it works, just like I'm speaking right now. Okay? And that's what you can practice by dropping your Adam's apple and speaking out of your chest and making your voice better like that. Now, the reason I call this Dune and Star Wars is I started practicing this after reading the novel Dune many, many, many years ago when I was young, because in Dune, we had Paul, I think was his name. He was able to control people with the voice. And then they borrowed that in Star Wars, and of course you saw him just control people, but his voice wasn't particularly low or resonant, but he was able to control people there as well. So that's why I put up that particular graphic. Now, when you actually speak, the way to hear yourself is to cup your hands over your ears like this, and then you'll hear how uncomfortable it is to you, but it isn't as uncomfortable as you think, because you're hearing the voice as other people hear you, much closer to it. So for instance, when I'm speaking now, and I'm cupping my hands over my ears, I'm hearing that I still have a little bit of that nasal sound, which my friends told me was going to kill me when I tried to go into television and radio when I was young, because of that nasality. Now, there is a way to work on sounding less nasal, and we'll be talking about that as well. However, the biggest tip that I can give you, and I'm going to show you more about this in just a moment, going back towards John Kennedy again, is believe it or not, and this is the most important thing when I do voiceovers, is I do hand motions while I'm reading, even though no one's seeing me. So as I read, I use my hands for emphasis all the time. And when I don't, I usually have to do the whole thing over because I listen to it and I say, didn't sound so great. What am I doing wrong? And then I remembered I didn't use my hands. When you use your hands when you speak, you actually are able to emphasize much better. And this is not, something right now I'm thinking I'm doing in audio. I'm not like doing this for you as a video presentation. I'm thinking of myself reading and how I read those scripts day in and day out. I want to make them really good. I use my hands, and that's how my audios get better. And that's an important tip. That's just one of the tips. The other is to take a really good posture. If you slouch, it doesn't come out as good. And I forget that all the time. I'm a big sloucher. If you put your shoulders back and you let the air come out from your chest and then up and out, you're going to sound better and have a better chance of that resonance and power that I mentioned before. This is really important, taking deep breaths. Otherwise, you run out of air in the middle of the sentence. You're going to have to take another breath. You can edit out the breaths, which is nice in editing, but it doesn't sound as good if you don't take the deep breath before you have a long thing that you're going to say. So if you're going to have a paragraph that you're going to say, if you're going to have a long sentence that you're going to say, take the deep breath first, because you want to make sure that everything that follows is coming off of that breath, rather than taking the breath in the middle of the sentence. Using inflections is very hard to teach. In fact, when you have inflections in the wrong place, the way I used to train when I had a weather service that I ran, and I used to hire people to go on radio, was I actually told them to start with a monotone and just speak like this and not go up and down. And then work by listening to other people, listening to other broadcasters, and then listening to their inflections up and down, their melody up and down, rather than just coming up with it on your own. But what I'm trying to say is you do have to have some inflections up and down, otherwise you're going to sound just downright boring. And that's something, again, comes with practice. Tempo, it has to do with not speaking too fast, which I tend to do. I'm from the East, and in New York, we speak very fast. It's where I'm from originally. Had to get rid of that New York accent, as I mentioned before. That was really hard. It's just a constant practice, constant pressure, even to this day, not to break into my New York accent. And that was, again, by practicing and listening to broadcasters who say broadcasters and not broadcastas, which is how I would say it when I was young. So tempo, not speaking too fast, not speaking too slow. And really important to teach President Obama when he's unprepared is not to say when you can't think of anything, but to pause and just not say anything. And that's fine. It's much better than going And when you're doing audio, you could edit out either. You could edit out the ums, you could edit out the spaces. And really, my mother was the one that told me this one. Smile as you speak, even if you're just doing audio. It comes across when you smile, not just when you're being seen, but when you're speaking. It actually changes the nature of the audio. So that's another really good tip. And then those hand motions that I told you about, to use hand motions to really emphasize your points when you're speaking into the microphone. Finally, this is the one that always got me, and that is the nasality and how to get rid of the nasality. So I could use a volunteer for this. Let's see if we could help. Oh, is it Ray? Ray, come on up. I could use you on this. Ray, the video guy, is a pro when it comes to speaking.
That's why I want to do it.
Really? Okay, so let's I'm sure you know this, but let's practice by putting all right, now I want you to say, I do not want to speak too nasally anymore.
I do not want to speak too nasally anymore.
Okay, so what are we going to do to get rid of that nasal? So we're going to try again, speak through our chest this time. All right, let me try it again. This time I'm going to try to speak from here rather than from here. I do not want to sound nasally anymore.
I do not want to sound nasally anymore.
Try it again. All right, try it again. This time think about coming, take a deep breath. Deep breath. All right, now say it again.
I do not want to sound nasally anymore.
Much better.
Hey.
All right, thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. By speaking through your chest and not through your nose, even if you have a stuffed nose, it's going to make you sound better. So I've been in that situation where I do have a stuffed nose like most of the time. So I got hooked on Sudafed, and it was doing all kinds of strange things to my body because I had too much Sudafed. It was affecting things that I don't even want to talk about. So I figured I better really start working on speaking from my chest even more. So even if I have a stuffed nose, I can still do audios for people. I may sound a little nasally, but I'm able to try to work out from my chest and not from my nose. And how good or bad do I sound right now? Still pretty good. All right, so that's the way to do it, is to just practice working on coming out from your chest, the air from your chest, rather than coming out from your nose. So that was my big one. There are alternatives, of course, to doing audio and video. If I made it sound complicated, if I've scared you, there's all kinds of things that you could do if you want to apply it to internet marketing. It's, of course, without saying, necessary now. And in fact, one of the things that I usually scratch off in all the scripts that are sent to me is when they spend 3 paragraphs trying to convince people at the beginning of the sales video how important video is. Nobody is disputing that. Why are you writing that in the scripts? It's important. Everybody knows it's important. So it's important to have video. It's always been important. It's been important since the talking movies first hit, even before the talking movies. It's always been there. QVC, of course, was able to sell the most products. Every time there's a change in commerce, it's the interaction of the human being and the audience that is doing the sales, and that's most important. It's not the printed copy that is going to be the most important, because people are generally lazy. At least I am. I know some people sit and read, but most people don't, and they just want to get it real quick. Now, that said, longer videos are harder to watch, and usually the most important content should come in the first few seconds and in the first minute and a half. After that, you've got to have everybody else stay with you. And that's the place to front load all your important stuff. But I'm breaking into marketing here, and I better back out into our prime area of talking. And that is, you can have a friend do it for you if you don't feel comfortable. That's one way to do it. You could have someone like on Fiverr or another venue, right? They could actually do the video or audio for you. You don't necessarily have to do it yourself. You could hire me and my team. We now have a situation where I don't just do the video work, but we now have a team where I can do the graphics as well. I have a wonderful person in India who's helping me with that, Dinesh. He's doing the graphics that match to the videos, so that we have the whole package as an example, or to do the voiceover work. Now, for more information on that, in addition to getting the entire talk today that I've just done, you just have to do that text that I told you before. You text 26786 to Todd. So that's the 26786 is, of course, what you put in that you're sending to, and then you write Todd, and then you'll get all that information. And if you're international, I think it'll work. We tried it with Cindy before. We're not positive, but we think it'll work if you add a 1. And we have yourgreenscreenguy.com for more information on that as well. So I borrowed from Ray. Ray is Ray the video guy. So I couldn't be your video guy. So I'm your green screen guy. And that's my new website, new identity. That's my new branding for 2017. And that is what I wanted to tell you about. Yourgreenscreenguy.com will have information about using us if you do want to go, of course, outside of yourself or outside of a friend to get some video or audio work done. Now, I would like to turn this over to questions. You don't have to limit it to performance, video or audio performance. You could ask about marketing, which of course I've become an expert on in terms of video marketing, anything you'd like. So I'll just turn it over to you. I'd be happy to answer some questions. Yes.
Can you hear me? Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. You talk about losing the New York accent, but what about us who are Australian, UK? Can we still use our own voices, or is
Yes,
it
well,
not working? Or
there's a big difference, first of all. I mean, if you don't have a heavy, you don't have a heavy Australian accent. And the way you sound to somebody in the market from the United States is quaint. We enjoy it, and there's no problem with it. But somebody like even Sam Backer at times, his accent's a little bit heavy, and he somehow has learned the U.S. accent. I always ask him to use his U.S. accent. The best way is to listen to U.S. speakers and try to emulate what they're doing. I've never been good at really figuring out how to wipe out foreign accents to become more like U.S. accents. It's a good question, but there's absolutely no negative as long as it's not too heavy. You know, as long as you know some of the idiosyncrasies. Yes, speaking slower, not fast, is better. And know the idiosyncrasies. For instance, in Australia and New Zealand, you tend to end, you don't, but others end what they say with a question. They go up, even when it's a statement. They go up as if it's a question at the end. That is something that is identifiable and that you already know about over there, and you could work on that. Just as a New Yorker knows that he says New Yorker, and just as someone from Boston knows that they say Boston. Boston, they swallow it, Boston. And those colloquialisms that you are aware of are the very ones that you need to reduce. They're so pronounced that you're already aware of them. And those are the only ones I would suggest wiping out. Otherwise, here we love your accent.
So is the reason that you want to wipe those out, is it to be better understood? Or
Yeah, to be better understood, right. So
to be better perceived?
Well, for instance, here we have a lot of people from the UK and from Ireland, and it's difficult if you have a heavy accent to understand that. There are certain words that just aren't the same, like now sometimes it's pronounced nigh, and some here in the United States, you know, if we hear nigh, we don't hear now. But some of those really obvious glaring exceptions are already known to the people who are speaking them. They just naturally have that. Speak English, yes?
Hi Todd, you gave out to me earlier on for speaking too quick, so I'll try and slow down a little bit. Not about video, but you mentioned earlier on in your talk the tips that you gave to Sam Becker about affiliate marketing. Can you pass on a few maybe?
Okay, so now I need someone to translate what he said.
Come on. You said earlier on in your presentation that you gave some tips to Sam Becker about being a top affiliate on
Okay,
JVZoo.
yes. All right, so
Can I book a one-on-one with you?
that was by the way, that was an excellent example of how to take a heavy, that's Irish accent, right? A heavy Irish accent, and by speaking slower, as Cindy recommended, becoming completely understandable. So that's a really good tip. So the question is, and this goes back to my core presentation that I usually give, is what the heck did I do to all of a sudden triple my sales 2-3 years ago and to become so prolific and win so many affiliate contests on JVZoo? And the answer is really kind of obvious, and most of you know you should be doing it, and there really isn't any secret. But it was to promote ahead of time, not after the product comes out. So what most people do, and it drives me crazy. Bill Guthrie did this past week. It drove me crazy. He has this product, right? It's Intella Video. He has this product, and he's telling all his JVs that he wants them to promote it. But when you promoted it before it came out, it goes to a blank generic JV Zoo page, nothing. After it comes out, then it goes to the product. But how could you build up any kind of excitement about an impending product if you don't promote it beforehand, or if you do and it goes to nowhere? So what I said to Sam, he said, well, what are you doing? I said, I pre-promote the products just like you know that we should be doing. And I do it in a pretty substantial way by leading up to the product launch, even though I'm the affiliate. That's number one. And the second tip, I said, is put yourself in there. Don't always, depend on the actual person that's promoting the product to do the work for you. Review the product, but put your video in there. Put your review on, put yourself in, interject your own personality in so that the people are able to see you, not just the product owner. Have them relate to you. And so many people were doing that on and off so successfully for years that it's just a no-brainer. I was just one of the people that started doing it very consistently at a crucial time. The third one is to stick with, as an affiliate. Obviously it only applies to some people here, but as an affiliate to stick, if you have a list, to stick to a certain topic. EBR mentioned this earlier, that I did much, much better when I narrowed it down and started not promoting everything that was in the internet marketing realm. It's good to deviate sometimes to see where people are interested, and if you do deviate from your main area of interest, ask those on your list, if you have a list, to move over to another list that's interested in that topic, rather than bugging your whole group about something that's unrelated. So that sort of sub-listing idea is something else I did. So those were the kind of tips that I gave him, and then what he, of course, gave me and gave all of us is he upped the game of doing bonuses for products, which has now become one pain in the butt. So everybody has bonus after bonus after bonus, but again, that was nothing new. Bonuses, I nearly got fired once when I was out in Utah because I was working so hard on doing a video about a bonus I was producing for a product. And they saw me doing this. I was supposed to be working on the weather, and they saw me working on the bonuses. And that was pretty far back in the whole routine, and that was already an old hat thing. So we all knew about bonuses all those years, but when we started doing bonuses as affiliates on a more regular basis and really piling them on ahead of time, right? Before the products came out, that's how we were able to, of course, do so well. Now, staying a step ahead of other people, because everybody then joins and does the same thing as you when they see that it works. Staying a step ahead is not that easy, but always doing it the best, putting your best foot forward when you're doing those tips that I just mentioned you. I mean, really getting out before the product comes out, really getting out and providing good bonuses, as an example. Those are the kinds of things that I told him and that we worked on together, and that's how Sam and I are the top affiliates on that particular venue. We're not necessarily the top affiliates, period, but on JV Zoo from doing those kind of things. So I hope that answers your question. Yes?
Hello, Todd. Hello, Todd. So that was my D voice. Sound okay?
That was good. You got your Adam's apple nice and low.
Thank you. Right, I'm Carl from England. I don't know if you know me.
Yes.
My question is, I've seen a lot of videos with very bad lighting, especially in this kind of very fast IM space, when people are throwing JV pages up very quickly and stuff. How would you suggest?
Okay, so I have a funny story regarding that. How do you do a studio? How do you get the lighting right when you're doing video? And I've always been a big proponent of doing everything. I was gonna say half-ass. I guess that would be applicable. So I do things shortcut. I always look for the quickest shortcut. So I don't necessarily take the time to buy the right equipment right off the bat. And I have a really, really tiny studio in one of my places, because I have right now a really kind of good studio down in Florida. I have a place up in Vermont. Now my house in Vermont is literally, and this is an exaggeration on the upside, 300 square feet, and that's exaggerating. It's really more like 200 square feet. And I have a little tiny room that's 6 by 8. It's in the back of the tiny house. And I turned that into a studio, even though it's only a 6 by 8 room. So I had to figure out, well, how am I gonna light this thing? And I got smart. And this is what most people should be doing, and they're not. I realized that when I was out on stories with photographers and producers, that they always brought those reflection things with them. And they were always reflecting the light at me when I would do a commercial, or sometimes even a spot story. And they weren't necessarily shining a light straight at me, but they were shining off the reflection, which gave a nice even lighting. So what I did in this tiny house is I got a whole bunch of lights from Target, and instead of pointing them at me, I pointed them all over the room, at the ceiling, at the walls, and all the light is bouncing off everything and producing an amazingly even lighting. And then behind me, I have the green screen. Now the green screen, of course, is important if you want to make the objects, the green screen disappear and put any object or any picture behind you in the end. So it worked out really well doing this indirect lighting, okay, rather than direct lighting, because if it was direct lighting, there'd be a shadow on the green screen, and the green screen work would be hard to deal with in post-production, right? It'd be hard to get rid of the green. So it works out really well when you use indirect lighting in any way that you can, by getting really bright lights, but not shining them right on you, but shining them at the other objects that are around you and have it kind of reflect off. That's if you're in a small space. If you're in a larger space and you have the money, you have the budget, even though it's not that expensive, is to get those, those like reverse umbrella lights on Amazon. You'll see plenty of different kinds of lights that you could use. You can put it on either side. You can also put some lights underneath coming up from the bottom. You can do some backlighting on a green screen wall that'll help with the shadow. But it's not to use just one straight light pointing towards you, because then you're getting high contrast. It doesn't make you look that great, and you're not getting this even lighting, and you're getting problems with green screen behind you. So I hope that helps.
That's an answer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes?
How about the audio equipment?
Audio equipment, I'm still struggling, like on terms of microphones. What I'm using right now when I'm on video, all right, is a boom mic that is suspended and pointing right towards me, and it's about this far away. So it's close, so it gets the bassiness of my voice. When I'm using just straight audio, there's the Audio-Technica products I found are the best. They're very inexpensive, around $60 or $70. Audio-Technica microphones. And they really sound very professional. They're either even better than the Blue Snowball, which is another one you could get. So Blue Snowball or the Audio-Technica series of microphones. I forgot the actual name. However, I will tell you this, that Amazon has good reviews on it. Hey Ray, what do you use for audio?
I use, for voiceover work, I have actually got a professional radio microphone. It's actually running through a whole audio system.
Yeah, like a Coleman mic, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's an RE20, which is in a lot of the radio stations you'll find them.
Yeah, so what Ray is referring to is he's running it through a board, just like the old days of radio, and then he's working it in from there.
For video, I do the same thing. I either use a shotgun mic that's pointed down, or sometimes a lapel mic.
Yeah, I need to find out which lapel mic you're using, because my lapel mic's not working well. Kim?
So we use the Rode. You just plug it into the iPhone. It is the best. Like, we were using the Boom as well. We were getting all sorts of issues, and we tried that and changed it. Never had a problem. Just the Rode, like $50, bought it in
R-O-A-D?
R-O-D-E. Plug it in, never had a problem.
R-O-D-E.
And I do professional voiceover with it as well. Never had a problem. People think it's coming from one of these mics. It's coming from my phone.
Wow. All right, excellent. Everybody get that Rode mic. Okay, other questions? Checking my phone to see how low
49 minutes.
Oh, this is really cool. It's 2:57. All right, I'm ending perfectly on time. One last question, anybody? All right, thank you very much for your time and attention. Great audience, thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one and only Mr. Todd Gross, everybody.